Hi, everyone. Welcome to Fuel Podcast. My name is Elena Misko, and today I'm happy to have Margarita, who is CFO of Endeavor. A little bit about Endeavor, if you don't know, but Endeavor is a very big global community of very cool founders. You may be heard of companies like Glovo, ElevenLabs, or even Brex. So this company is part of this big community. And today we have Margarita, who is a very interesting person to have today. She's a CFO of this global community. She has also background being a leader in UNICEF. And I am literally impressed that, Margarita, you combine two parts together. So you're a great leader. You have soft skills, but also you have engineering background. For me, it's already like you are a rock star combining the things with finance. So happy to have you here.
Yeah, thank you. No, it's my honor to be here in your podcast.
Thank you so much. So first of all, I want to start from like this question. I usually think about like this topic that we learn some things, and especially like our like connection with money and with finance. It's usually going somewhere from childhood. So I'm just like curious, like as a child, like what financial values or practices maybe did you learn, and something that actually what maybe some principle influence you today. Who are you, and what's the for you are?
Yes. I love this question, Aliana. I truly believe the financial discipline starts early in life. Growing up, I'm Venezuelan. Growing up, my mom always said, "Te arropas hasta donde la cobija te alcance." In other words, it means live within your means. But more important is beyond that is the knowledge that everyone should be aware and know what they're capable of. So I think this that stuck with me, and the two things that I get out of this is discipline and self-awareness. So I think you need discipline for everything in life and a CFO every day to understand your cost structure, to the cash flow, any decisions that you need to make. And self-awareness, again, of course, you need to know your strengths and weaknesses of the organization, of your team, of yourself, to keep evaluating how do you balance workloads and sources, or when to pivot. So I think these are my main two principles that I apply regularly, that I'm conscious applying.
I really love these principles, especially you mentioned this thing like understand weakness of yourself. I think this is a lot about like being brave enough to understand these weaknesses, because when you understand your weakness, you definitely know how to work with that. And you're like, actually, I think you're a much better leader when you have like all the stuff that you mentioned. So it connects with me a lot. So thanks for sharing these principles. It's really, really interesting. And you mentioned like this principles, and I can imagine that when you joined Endeavor, so you definitely faced with some challenges. I think these principles maybe help you to figure out these challenges. Like, but what is your role as a CFO in Endeavor now? So how it looks like, how big is your team? What challenges you faced when you joined Endeavor?
Yeah. So, well, being a CFO at Endeavor, and I think in most places, means to wear many hats. It's beyond just managing spreadsheets, is to think about strategy, operation, risk, even talent. Talent is an important part. So for me, this role is connecting the dots with the rest of the organization and be able to help and drive decisions. So I think this is how I see the biggest, the role of the CFO. And the challenges for me, it was the challenges, but at the same time, I lean on my superpower. What I consider one of my superpowers is that ability to dive deep into the number, but be maintaining in mind your high level vision, strategy, and be able to explain how those numbers make up to understand the organization that you are in and the history of
Yeah,
that.
I think this is a superpower. I always like when I talk with founders, and I always also thought about finance in this way. So this is just like you have another superpower when you not biased, you don't have like emotions, you just read all the information as it is with all these numbers, and you see it as it is. And this is so true picture than you see with numbers. And you can definitely, you mentioned this, connect the dots together, like with strategic where you are now, like what trends you saw. And yeah, it's definitely a superpower to have. And I wish I think all people would have such superpowers in new way actually to see the company. And you mentioned the strategic thing. So I can imagine like you manage your team now, but what do you see like key challenges like for now? So what key challenges like to be a CFO in Endeavor. So like hire the best people, or maybe building the financial system, like what it is for you now.
I might guess that it applies across any organization today is that growing expectation of a CFO to have a more strategic role, which I find it excited. It's very exciting to be part of the solution, not being seen as an afterthought. But for that, so apart from maintaining discipline, we need to also to become very adaptable. You need to understand what are the trends in the market, what are the shifts, what are things that you need to be consider to be able to support the organization. So that's one thing. I think talent in general is always important. I'm lucky. I have an amazing team that I can lean on. But you need to hire right, and then to don't have that as a challenge. And
How big is your team?
So my team today is 12 people, but I have not only I'm not only have an oversight of finance, I'm also have an oversight of data. I love data and the platform that how we support the entire organization. So I have a team of 12, not direct reports, but 12 overall. And as I said, I've been very lucky and I've been putting more attention to hire right, to hire the right people. And I have a very simple approach on how I manage the team. I'm very transparent. So for me, you have to have a very trusted relationship.
So you mentioned this hirings, so very important, and to hire the best people. Agree a lot with that. I think like it's just the one way how you can scale like and what you do, just having this great people in your team. And talking about this hiring, so what important for you like to check when you hire people? What questions you would ask like to someone who you want to hire to your financial team?
Yeah, so actually not just in finance, but in general, particularly when you work for a mission-driven organization, the person have to know where they're working. Like they need to believe in that mission, that somehow their values, you don't know that person much, but that idea that they believe in the mission, they want to be part of the mission, you will quickly learn that person will adapt to your values. So that for me, that's the first thing. And I know when it comes to finance, again, it's that ability, the balance of being strategic but being very financial discipline. So from detail oriented, but be able to get into the high picture to communicate with others.
If it's not a secret, so do you have like, I don't know, like just curious, some tests for this like financial people, or maybe some like what like stages of interview you have? Because I believe like maybe some founders like will listen to our podcast and they definitely have the question, like how to hire the great financial person to their team. So maybe you can recommend some steps or what should be like, checked during like this interview process.
We do follow a process and we have many filters. So at the moment I interview we have passed some of those filters. So I get to interview, we get 20, the first person interview for values. So make sure that we have those that have mission and that we believe they're going to be a cultural fit. So once you have that, but they will come to me when we have a subset of 5, let's say. And again, I double check the mission, and we tend to have a case for them to resolve, particularly depending on the role itself. If it's, let's call it, we want that person to do modeling, we ask to develop a model to see how they work, how clean they prepare their information, what assumptions they use, like how to present that. So I think a case is always important to understand the technical capabilities and the way of working. So I have to trust, like if you're a graduate from, I assume that you will have those skill sets, and particularly if you have been in the workforce. But that sort of reinforce, unless referrals. I use a lot of referrals to make sure that's the best. That's a super plus. And if we don't have referral, be able to call the reference to make sure people don't change that much at the end of the day. So that helps. So I don't know if this is what do you think this will be helpful?
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is like very important that you mentioned that you definitely should give a case. and what you expect from the person. So this is something that they should already know, like how to do. So I see the same. So especially like when we even hire in different other positions, like in sales and marketing. So definitely we give a case study, like, and like it's very near like to what people will do, very similar to what people will do at fuel finance. So it always, I think, the best way to understand how this person can deal with that. So it's totally, I think, makes sense. And just curious, like you mentioned that for finance people and for yourself and for your team, you said that this strategic level of finance is very important. But for like, I think for all like financial people who listen to this podcast, so especially someone who just turned to be like head of finance or they just became CFO. So how you can describe the strategic level of finance? So like, what is that? So from what like you should start if you just like came to this position, and you definitely, I heard it many times, you should have the strategic level of finance, but maybe you can describe what is that. So is it about like market or macroeconomics, or like how do you describe, like from your words, what is that?
So for me, be able to understand the strategy of the company that you're in. Otherwise, you're going to be fully disconnected from the company. So if it's depending on the company, if it's in a growth phase, what it takes to growth, what is the method, where is the company is leaning on? Is it leaning on, it depends, if it's leaning on volume or quality. So all of that, what makes up the strategy of the company to achieve those audacious goals to get. So it's beyond it's not just a 5 billion, like we're gonna grow that 100%. Like the how, the why, that understanding, to keep it to a really low level. So that's for me is what strategic thinking is, that you need to understand, okay, what the goals of the companies are, what are the drivers that is going to take us to get there, and how we can support that, how in my role I can support that to get to those goals in long term, medium term, and short term. So these are translated that strategy into a more getting to the practical level. To today is cash. You have to follow the cash. What is the cash flow needed to make those investments today that gonna get you to that impressive growth that is expected? If it's the strategy.
Yeah, that's so true. Like, what do you think? Just curious. I recently had discussion with other founder, and he said me that financial teams and CFOs, like we just need to have such team in our business, because they are like always like more pessimistic, but they are very realistic. Like like when all other teams like, oh, we will go and achieve like this growth, like you mentioned, like 100%, and finance team like, no, I'm just like not sure about that. So, and it's usually like, but I think it really, so he said that it actually helps them because they saw like how like all other teams can be like very optimistic. So what do you think about that? So about this role, like a financial person being like this realistic person in the team all the time.
Yeah, I can see that. I don't know if it's always the best. I don't know if I'm the most beloved person in the organization, for that matter, because but I keep saying this is part of my role. I'm the balance. You're the yin, I'm the yang, and like we need to maintain a balanced approach to things, to highlight the risk, to going back on, okay, but how? Help me understand what are the drivers that are going to get us there, how this investment really is going to make 10 times more. So I definitely don't necessarily have to be the pessimist per se. I am probably personally, I'm not a pessimist. I'm the optimist in my family, but when it comes to the business, I'm probably the one presenting the different perspective. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, I can actually relate to that. I think maybe it's not like pessimistic, but like usually financial person in the team is the person who can highlight all the risks and all different ways, like, and scenarios. So definitely. And going back to the strategic question, so just curious, I know that for many CFOs or head of finance, a real challenge actually run board meetings. Do you have board meetings? Did you have this experience? Like maybe you can share what was your experience, like if you remember running the first board meeting, and what will be like your recommendations for other CFOs, like how to be prepared, like what mistakes to avoid.
Yeah, I better don't talk. Yeah, I do have an experience with board meetings, and I better don't talk about my first one in here. I was paralyzed. I was completely paralyzed because I made a mistake, and I will explain. I think the first thing is know every number inside out. You need to understand what are again the if you're going to talk about the budget, understand every line, what makes the budget, what was the past, how are you changing, what is the variance, everything. You need to know the numbers inside out. Lean on the finance committee. So for me, the finance committee has always been an important support. Is a team. Is almost an extended team. It's a mentor. It's almost a mentor type that can help us. It can help you as a CFO shape the message and the understanding of things, and keep it simple. For a board, that you have 5 minutes, 10, I don't know, you're not going to have enough time. Keep it simple that anyone can understand. Boards members tend to be from different areas, so you will have the marketing person, the more talent driven person, you will have finance people, but you need to be able to talk to the entire audience. And the common mistake, and probably the one that I had it, I overcomplicated things, and then I got paralyzed. So in my mind, I was over-prepared, overcomplicated, not rested enough, and I was extremely nervous for that. So don't do that. Just anticipate the tough questions, but keep it simple. Know everything out, and you make sure the message is clear and it's backed with solid data.
Yeah, I think like really like not be so nervous and have a good sleep before is important for such cases.
You know the number better than anyone.
Yeah, that's so true, definitely. And like you mentioned already, like about your mistakes. What do you think, like, if you can share, like, from your experience, so from like all your career, what do you think like was like one of your mistakes that you did? And maybe you can share some stories. It's always interesting to hear such stories and learn from other people about that.
Probably not as a finance, not as a CFO, but yeah, probably in my early career, you tend to be eager and growing fast and doing more or wanting to know it all. This is great for a young professional. And now I see it with people. It's great to have that drive, but you need to bond. You need to team it sometimes a little bit. Allow to be mentor and guided at the beginning. Like you can be smart, you can be driven, but there is experience. Those with experience will be able to add value to your career path.
So your recommendation would be like to have such mentor like from like day one, so someone who can help you like to figure out like what should be, as I understand, focus grows, not like energy everywhere.
Yes, and sometimes and most likely will be your bosses, your early bosses. Now they're going to be keen on how you're going to continue growing. Well, keen by you're like, okay, I'm out of here. I don't want. Or this is the path that this person that you admire, and you want to eventually get into their shoes, learn from them.
I'm just like curious, you have this combo that I mentioned earlier, that you have this combo of engineering and financial background. How do you see like this engineering background helps you in your financial career? And just I can't like, I don't know, miss this question about like AI and finance. What do you think about that? I know that's already everywhere, but just curious, like, to hear it from you. So what exactly do you think like about AI and finance, especially that you have this engineering background?
Yeah. I think it helped me, and I always say if I do it again, I will do the same. I will start with engineering. Engineering help you set up a mental model on how to approach things. This has been my experience. And AI today is everywhere. It's embedded everywhere. I'm trying to create that bot that can help me to quickly review contracts, or for evaluation, to understand the concept of companies quickly. So I'm playing around with those bots. And I think this is just the beginning. Like, I think the AI is here to stay, and it's another tool that we have.
What do you think, where will be, in what niche like AI will be the most applicable, I mean, like in accounting, taxes, financial planning, financial reporting, controlling. So where do you see it can like make the biggest effect?
What I think I would like is to how to eliminate some manual things, paperwork. Reading a contract that is 50 pages and you just need to know two numbers. That will be amazing. Definitely, I see. Again, this is where I'm experimenting today, so probably this is what is top of mind.
Yeah, reading contracts, I think a lot defined just the numbers. That's
Exactly.
crazy. And what do you think? So AI is definitely, yeah, I also see that I saw some startups like who try to automate taxes or accounting. So I think, yeah, definitely many repeatable tasks like in this industries. And I know like there's even a crisis, I think, of CPAs because they're just like dropping down. There are not so many people who want to become CPAs. And yeah, definitely AI is not there. So I know a little bit that there's high demand and actually for all tax people, but supply is not very high. So especially
Yeah.
now during tax season. So yeah, I can relate here with this repeatable tasks, definitely. And just like wanted like to ask you because you're the person with like great financial background, but you also saw like different financial mistakes. From your perspective, like when you talk about like financial mistakes, what companies usually do. So what I think like is one thing that is the most popular like in financial management, like mistakes, and like what you will recommend, like how to avoid like this one mistakes which is very popular in many companies doing their finance.
I think you need to own the mistake. So I don't know, regardless of whatever it is, own it and fix it. It's at the moment you find a mistake, I believe we need to fix it and explain the rationale why. And I guess that's why I'm obsessed with knowing your number inside out, because you need to all the time, and your team have to be in that position to check, to control, to avoid. We need to be precise. Finance is about precision. Luckily, I haven't been confronted with so many of those mistakes that will have an earthquake impact.
Yeah, I think like what I see that like there's like maybe not mistake but maybe almost like challenge. I see that for many companies like challenges can be like collect all the data together or make a good like actual report to see like some numbers results and to see this like numbers fast. I also see some companies they have challenges with accurate financial planning. I think accurate financial planning is another thing, but
No.
yeah, definitely some companies try to run like different scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
But what, just like curious, as I raised this question about financial planning. So, what do you think, like about like what are your secrets, maybe like how to make financial planning more realistic, more accurate? So maybe you have some like I don't know, like hints that you have.
Yeah. The history, I think it's important to know what the company has been able really to do. So again, if you're growing at a 3% in the last 5 years, what makes you believe that you're growing at a 10? Explain me. Like, you better have a good explanation to how we're gonna get there. Otherwise, yeah, I will challenge those assumptions. So have very detailed assumptions on how you're gonna get there, not just a number. Again, go back to understanding the company and make the dots on not just the financial drivers, but the operational drivers. What needs to change that will have an impact in that growth and that profitability. So it's and you learn and iterate and track it on a regular basis. Tracking is important, monitoring that those assumptions are correct, and if not, adjust it. So probably the first year is not going to be correct. Let's adjust it for the following year. And well, it's that that's the game. No, when you think you figure out, something else is going to come, and you will need to start over again. But that's the name of the game. It's monitoring, assuming, and keep iterating.
Yeah, that's so true. Do you remember any like conflicts or cases when because I know about such cases in many companies. So when like like go to market team or founders, they say no, we definitely will be there with our like revenue, with our profitability, whatever, and you just like understand that there is not. So like how, like from your perspective, how did you negotiate like this case with other like teams so they should like like have other numbers? So how did you explain them? Like,
Yes. Yeah, I know what you mean. I think scenarios are a good one. So we can and set up milestones. Okay, you might be right. Let's what will tell us that we're gonna get there. So different scenarios with different milestones, so that allow us to prove like you're probably into something and you might be right. So it's not, again, it's not me versus, it's not finance against the rest of the organization. Let's work together. We're a team. We're in the same team. I'm supporting you. But let's work together on the assumptions to how we're gonna get there. So I think with milestones and scenarios, with these two tools, you will be able to let them understand why the assumption is not that correct. If you go deeper, you need to deconstruct those goals into a more,
That's so cool. I love this phrase that finance actually is not against other team and we should work together. This is something I need usually should be explained in a proper way inside the teams. So there's no finance is not against. Thank you so much, Margarita. I think this was very insightful conversation. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for the invitation.